If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up and let's go. What is up, everybody? Welcome out to episode 95 of the Game Time Guru podcast. We are 2 years strong, running with this podcast every week, new episodes. If you are new to the show, it's like your first time listening, totally fine. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to go and hit that subscribe button, whether you're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. That way you can go back and listen to some of the previous episodes, as well as get the notifications for future episodes that we push forward. Every week we're bringing on new guests. We're talking about new topics, so make sure to check it out. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And today's guest is going to be really special. It's someone I've been trying to land for quite some time. He's a local basketball legend. He played at Boise State University. We've had a few of them on the show, and he's still continuing to leave his mark here and sharing his knowledge of the game of basketball by helping out the youth, and we'll go into more detail with that. So the reason I think it's so awesome, though, is because, you know, when you see someone, I've learned this with my current job, right, and just kind of what we're doing. This is why I do the podcast, right? If you see somebody that's an expert in their field, and they have this knowledge or this passion, and they don't share it with the rest of the world, I think that they are robbing the world of their goodness, because people need to hear what they have to say. And I know that kind of sounds cocky, but I feel like with my podcast, I'm able to share my passion with the rest of the world. Now, while it may not resonate with everybody, there are some people that actually really enjoy it. So I'm sharing my passion, and people get to hear that, and it blesses the lives of others. And this is the same concept with our guest. He has such a strong skill set when it comes to basketball, and it's not just basketball, it's life lessons too. And you'll hear about that in our interview. You know, this individual went through some difficult life experiences. We're talking, family members lost, and then he had to battle through injuries and adversity through, his career, and still, like, he's able to relate to younger individuals because he has that experience. And so he's now making his mark here in the Valley by helping with the youth. And I want you guys to listen in and hear it from him, not from me. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on our guest to the show and let you guys hear this. It's an amazing interview, one that I've been waiting for a long time, and I'm just super, super pumped to have him on the show. So if you're just doing cardio right now at the gym or something, whatever you're doing, just sit back, relax, and hear from our guest today. It's Booker Nabors. He's a local basketball legend. I hope you guys enjoy it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Time Guru podcast. As I mentioned in the introduction, we've got an amazing guest on the show today, and I'm honored to have Booker Nabors joining us. He's a local legend, and he's a local legend for a reason. His name's out there. People know him, and you're going to get to know his story. So, Book, thanks so much for joining the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Shane. Appreciate it.
For sure, man, for sure. And, Booker, you played for Boise State, but I want to start, before we get into that story, before the days of Boise State, you had the honor of playing for one of the greatest programs and arguably one of the greatest coaches, for that matter, here in Idaho, in basketball anyways. And I want to know what you learned. What did you learn from your time at Borah High School way back when?
Oh, man, that's you're giving me goosebumps with that one. Yeah, my decision to go to Borah, it was definitely intentional, man. I grew up in southeast of Boise. I went to Liberty Elementary and White Pine, and then actually attended LeBois when it was Timberline for the first 2 years. However, it's when I really started making the turn and the commitment to hoops. And both my brothers actually went to Boise High. They were football players, but I, for some reason, and it was kind of on my mom, she wasn't pleased with the athletic program, and we knew Borah had some things going on, so I transferred up to the bench, up to South, my ninth grade year, city champs. Shout out to all my South boys, and then we had a really good team, and then it enabled me to go to Borah, where I was pulled up onto the sophomore team, or the varsity team. Actually started on the sophomore team. We went over to Madison and Rigby, and I had a really good weekend. I think I had like 38 and then like 41 or something like that. And then Coach Cada yanked me right up, and the rest is kind of history. So, I look back on that career, particularly my junior year at Borah, is one of my favorite seasons of basketball, man. We went 21 in a row straight into the state championship, where unfortunately we came up a little bit short, but it was always so much bigger than basketball with Coach Cada, man. we have a super special bond. In fact, we just had lunch 2 days ago. We still get together all the time. But, man, it was bigger than basketball. When I think about Borah, I think about hard-nosed team defense, chemistry. I mean, our team, we were 6 or 7 deep, and all 6 or 7 of us averaged 11 points, 10, 11 points, double figures. We didn't have one guy on that team that year that was just a stud. And I think you see that in a lot of sports. I think when you see teams where, you know, they might have one kid stand out and have my senior year, I was the same way. We had, you know, I averaged 22 points, but we weren't nearly as good as we were the year before. So, life skills, man, I had gone through a tough time with the family situation and a sick sibling, and Coach Cada was there for me through that and really showed me just this unconditional, compassionate, you know, understanding love that really I consider him more like a father than anything, than a coach. He's just a great, great man.
That's insane, man, because I hear all the stories about the guys over at Borah. There's a lot of players who've gone through, you know, at Borah High School specifically for Coach Cada because of not only the basketball skills they learn, but the life lessons that they learn. And it's cool to see it. We'll get to this in a little bit, but, you know, you just mentioned you still have a relationship with him 20 years later. It's just insane. You know, that's the kind of coaches that leave an impact on your life. You see those, you know, we all grow up playing our sports. Anybody who's listening here is probably a sports fan. So we play our games, you know, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever it may be. And you have good coaches and you have bad coaches. And the best coaches, I think, that, you know, you have are the ones who build those relationships. And it's, like you said, bigger than basketball. It's more than basketball. And I think that's awesome. It's more than the sport itself. And Coach Cada definitely left his mark here in not only the Treasure Valley, but the whole state of Idaho for that matter. Now, Book, you kind of took your talents. You were always a solid basketball player coming up through high school, and you took those talents to the Division I level at Boise State University. And I kind of followed you guys' team. It's weird because I was younger, obviously, but I always followed Boise State basketball from the late 90s when Berto was playing all the way through now. So, like, I always just was a huge fan of Boise State basketball, not just because I grew up here, but because I just love the program. And it was cool to see, you know, the people coming in, and I remember your guys' your whole squad from the time you got there, from the time you left, and the different players that came in and out. And it's crazy. One of the things that I noticed about you, Book, is you were always an efficient scorer. Like, you shot, I think you averaged over 40% from the field during your career at Boise State, if I'm not mistaken, and that's pretty dang efficient. If you know this game of basketball, anything over 40% is unbelievable. So I want you to explain, like, the growth you experienced as a player and as a man from your freshman year through the end of your collegiate career at Boise State University.
Yeah, man, it was quite the journey. You know, it's something, and I try to convey that to my young players these days, that, you know, as we're in the moment in college, you think it's going to last forever, and then you look back in the grand scheme of life, and it goes by just like that. But for me, man, it was super special. You mentioned, you know, growing up and following us. You know, I followed Berto. He was a senior at Boise State when I was a senior in high school in '99, and you know, I grew up watching Tanaka Beer and Lance Vaughn and Steve Shepard and Shambrick Williams and Roberto and all these guys, and then, you know, all of a sudden I'm one of them, and it was amazing, and it was kind of divine how, not kind of, it absolutely was divine how it happened. My brother was student body president at Boise State the year before I got there, and unfortunately he fell pretty sick, and it was a tough thing to deal with when I was making my decision on where I was going to go. I didn't have a ton of offers, but definitely was important to stay close to home for that reason. And so I ended up having to walk on. Unfortunately, that's one thing that I don't really agree with or didn't like at the time. You know, Abe and a lot of the local boys like us, they expected us to walk on because, you know, we're local guys, which we did. And then I wasn't offered a scholarship even after that year. Luckily, one opened up, so I was going to transfer. I actually went up to Walla Walla with my mom, and we were in the coach's office, Ryman, and there were some other local guys from the area that were going to go there. So we would have had a really good team, but you know, like I said, it was kind of divine how it happened. One opened up, and then I ended up going from a walk-on to transferring to starting the following year, and then the rest is kind of history. It was just an amazing story of ups and downs, and, you know, I had really, really good seasons my freshman and sophomore year. Had a couple of injuries between my sophomore and junior year, so my role had changed, and my minutes had changed as well. And you mentioned the efficiency, it still had to be there because my minutes were limited. So I was very conscious of, when I was in the game, I had to, help my team and lift them up because I didn't know how much I was going to play, whatever the case was. And so that was very important to me. But, getting a degree, obviously the relationships that were formed during my time at Boise State, my brother, Brian DeFerris, he's still here in town, and we went through all 4 years together. Joe Skiffer, Scott Fraser, Daphne, these guys are my brothers, and that's the beauty of basketball. Not only was it able to, afford me a free education, I was able to travel, all over the country, and then some of my lifelong friends and brothers were brought into my life. So just so much that I'm thankful for that experience, man, to play here in my hometown and just all the things that it afforded me for sure.
Man, that's super cool. It's cool hearing the names too that you're dropping right there, and BD's definitely one of them because he still plays around here in the Valley, and so do you. So it's kind of cool to see these former players that are still playing and just having fun and doing their thing. Because I remember those days. Now, of all the memories you have, Book, what was your favorite memory at Boise State? If you could name one, I guess there's probably a ton, but
yeah, I'll give you a couple, man, just because there's a few. There were so many great games that we played in, but I'm not gonna lie, man. My freshman year, so my redshirt year, all right, Boise State had somehow struck up an agreement for Cincinnati to come in, and this is when Cincinnati had
Kenyon Martin.
Kenyon Martin, they're number 2 in the nation, and it was the first time since back in the day that I will always call it the Pavilion. I know it's Taco Bell Arena, whatever the case is, but to me it's the Pad, it's the Pavilion, and so it was completely sold out. And I'm seeing all these NBA players there, and so that was pretty special. So the part of that deal was the following year we went to Cincinnati. So the first 2 games of my collegiate career at Boise State, we played Cincinnati, and we came back through Kansas. And so Kansas, I mean, it was unbelievable. They had obviously it was sold out, but they had students camping out for our game. It's just that crazy. And to see, Dr. James Naismith's court and Roy Smith, and they had 7 NBA players, Drew Gooden, Kirk Heinrich, Chenoweth, all these guys, it was just absolutely unreal. So I will never forget that. That ranks far up there. Let me think. What else? Obviously my the first game that I started, that first home game that I came out, and I could just feel my brother was there with me, and that's what his dream always was for me to play there. So that was very special. And then, senior night, man, I'll never forget, walking off that court into the locker room the last time, and, we just sat there, and you look around, and you don't want to take that jersey off because you can't believe this unbelievable ride has come to an end. But yeah, those are a few. My senior year, we went to the 3rd round of the NIT. We were 1 game away from making it to Madison Square Garden, but unfortunately we ran into Diener from Marquette, who was also an NBA player, and he lit us up. But yeah, man, there were some pretty amazing experiences there for sure.
Man, I remember that NIT run as well. Was that the same year that you guys had to play at the Idaho Center because they had a conflict? Yeah. Okay. Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, Milwaukee against Bruce Pearl and everything. He fled through his freaking blazer, but yeah, we got that win, and it was awesome. The town, we had to take the court out there, but the town showed up and they supported us and sold out there, and I think we ended up winning by like a bucket or 2 or something like that.
Yeah, y'all were crushing them at first. They made a strong comeback. I was at that game. It was insane, dude. I was at the first one y'all played at the Pavilion, but then you guys got to the second round, and I was like, man, that was super cool run. I love that squad you guys had. I thought it was amazing.
Absolutely, man.
That's super cool. And then as you're talking about the Cincinnati game, the one that was here, I remember I was in 6th grade, which is crazy now that I'm thinking about it, but I was in 6th grade, and that was the same day as the Humanitarian Bowl, and I believe it was the game against Louisville that we ended up winning. And then I remember running back home with my uncle and then jetting back to the stadium down there, so it's going back and forth just to watch it. Even though it was like a 30-point blowout, it was still one of the coolest experiences.
It was. It would have been cool if the 12,500 people there to watch us, but I think I probably would have been. I was a fan of that game as well. Just like Kenny Martin had 18 points, 9 dunks, something like that. It was just unreal.
Man, yeah. I remember a couple backboard shakers there. One was an inbounds pass on the baseline that was an alley-oop.
Yeah, that's a move out of bounds play.
Man, it is insane. Now, Book, if you were to go back and you have all these awesome memories, I want to know who okay, so which teammate of yours at Boise State had the largest impact on your life? You've referenced a few of them. I just want to know which teammate had the largest impact for you.
Oh, biggest impact. Wow, man, that's a deep question. I think I don't know if there's one single player. I mean, if there's one person I really admired and respected his just hard hat mentality was Joe Skiffer, just because he wasn't the most offensively gifted, I guess, player, but his leadership, his competitiveness, his defensive just grit. I mean, night in and night out. I said that about his offense, but he was, I think he at one point led Boise State the history of guys with games started as well as minutes played, just because you had to have him on the court. He knew how to play one way, and that was hard. And night in and night out, he's guarding the best guy on the other team. So Joe's he's just a defensive beast out there. He's just a great, understands the game. He just was a great teammate. So definitely Joe Skiffer. BD was one as well. As much as if he hears this, he's probably one of the best players that I've ever played against as well. Just an unbelievable competitor, clutch. I don't know. He had several game winners at Boise State while we were there. So that team, I mean, my senior year, just the chemistry that we had. We all had each other's backs. We were boys off the court, on the court, and we wanted to bring out the most of each other in our games, and I think we did that. So probably those two were the two that probably had the most impact, I would say, on me as I was there.
That's awesome, man. It's cool to hear that and just hear the detail from your perspective. Now, when I left, I left the country for 2 years to serve a mission for my church, and I left in 2008. When I returned in 2010, I went to, I played in the BAM Jam 2010. I was like, oh, cool. We have a 3-on-3 tournament back in Boise. Cause when I was gone, like before I had left, we didn't have it. So they had launched BAM Jam before I had gotten home. So I went to go play in 2010. And I remember, when I started going and, still competing here in the Valley and just seeing some of the local guys, one of the things I noticed is this was like insane, but I was like, dude, I saw you and a couple others, but I was like, Book I don't know if this is even possible, but he's like even better than he was in college. It was insane. Like your game even improved that much more. One of the things I noticed was like your footwork and your defense was unbelievable. I remember like the way that you'd play defense and your arms, like people couldn't cross over because you had your hands in there all the time and your footwork was unbelievable. Now, did you model your game after somebody specifically, or did you kind of just want to do your own thing and you just worked hard?
I appreciate you noticing that, because due to father time, man, and injuries and things like that, I've had to change my game quite a bit. So believe it or not, and I know again, if BD, you'll never believe this. He always gives me a bunch of flack, but I used to be a slasher and be able to be a bit springy. I wasn't like Justin Lyon just flying all over the place and things like that. But I could dunk and bang out if I had a breakaway and stuff like that. But due to my knee injuries and things and I wasn't able to get by anybody anymore for a couple of years. After my surgery, it's all you kids out there. If you ever have to go that route, make sure you do physical therapy, because I did not do that, and it really set me back. And then I tried to come back too soon. It just wasn't the same player. I couldn't stay in front of anybody. So after college, man, I had to take a couple of years off just to let my knees heal up. And then I got a job at bodybuilding.com because I didn't go play as I initially thought after, and so I learned a lot about supplementation. I learned a lot about the gym, the weight room, and just got bigger and stronger. And the carryover that had onto the court is absolutely real and absolutely tremendous. And it was able to get me back into kind of the player that I was, years back in a different kind of way. And so I really became a smarter player and understood that you don't necessarily always have to get to the rack. Like I said, with my knees, I wasn't able to, so I really tried to develop my mid-range game, and that's kind of my specialty these days is just, stopping short, stop and pop. You don't always have to get there, and I think that's kind of a lost art. You look at Sam Cassell or like Richard Hamilton or guys like that really perfected that. Not saying that I'm them, but I watched them do it. And a lot of times, what I try to teach my kids these days, you can use the defense's aggressiveness to them. So you got them on your hip, your shoulder. Okay, they think they're going to try to cut you off. Stop short, pop the shot. But yeah, defense is definitely, especially in those tournaments where the court is condensed, which is ideal for a bunch of 29-year-old guys. Wink, wink. You know what I'm saying? Like me and my boys that understand the game. We shorten the court. We switch. We take pride in shutting guys down for sure, man.
How many BAM Jams have you guys won in a row and or like all around since you guys started doing it?
Not that I'm keeping track, Shane. 5 in a row, 8 overall. But we're going for our 6th in the spring. So it's really fun, man. I tell you, just to compete, and we've linked up with some former Broncos, so it's pretty special. We always try to have 4 of us out there, and just guys setting you up and spotting up. It's fun to play with guys for one at a high level at this stage in our lives. I mean, most of those guys, they all went and played overseas, so they're retired. They can actually say that. For me, I think because I never went and went overseas and signed a contract or anything like that. When I wasn't able to do that for the couple of years, I kind of have the perspective that it was taken away from me, so to speak, and so. Now that's my motivation. I just want to continue playing the game, for as long as I can. Whether that's city league or 3-on-3 or whatever the case is. I just like to compete. And I'm just a basketball guy, and so when we get out there with my guys, it's fun. You get a little crowd and get to compete with these guys that are quite a bit younger than us, but it goes to show that basketball IQ and playing smart and playing together can overcome athleticism a lot of times.
Man, I'll tell you what, that's crazy you say that, because I've been watching you guys. I like to, usually when I'm playing in the tournaments, I mean, I'm not near that level right now, especially now. I mean, maybe about 8 years ago I could have competed, but yeah, we're smaller and we're definitely not there. So we go into the competitive division. We don't go into the elite division, but I watch you guys. I kind of study what you guys do because I enjoy watching you and the rest of your teammates across the last 5-6 years specifically. And it's insane. This last summer, I remember in the BAM Jam tournament, they finally had a team that was not the normal, the Rory's team. It wasn't that one. It was they were big. They were some big boys. And I was like, oh, they might be able to compete with them. But you guys figured out a way. You weren't as big as them. That was the biggest team I've seen play against you guys. And but you got it done. And it's insane that you guys can adapt to that. You learn how to play with each other, and you learn, how to utilize your strengths and, pretty much attack the weakness of the other team. I mean, sometimes that's what you got to do, is just focus on what you guys are strong at. And it's insane that you guys were able to beat them too. It's crazy. Speaking of BAM Jam, man, we talked about it earlier. You said, you were able to travel some cool places at Boise State. You got to go to some cool places, but basketball as a whole, even post collegiate career, you've been able to travel. And one of the things I remember is the spring BAM Jam tournament. For anybody who's listening to this, I've had an interview with Vince Hordeman before, so we talked about BAM Jam and kind of what they do, but there was a time where it was kind of connected with the USAs. It was a qualifier for the USA tournament, and so they were playing by the FIBA rules, and you guys, you won it, the team that you had at that time. I can't remember outside of Chris, Craig, and I can't remember the other guy y'all had. Who was it? Kevin. Okay.
Baker, yeah.
Baker. Okay, so it was you 4. You guys qualified for the USA tournament, and you went. I think it was in Colorado. But something happened there. You hurt yourself. You ended up with a pretty bad injury with the Achilles. But before the injury, I want you to explain that to anybody who's never actually heard of this. It's a 3-on-3 tournament, FIBA rules. You're going to play in USA. What was that whole experience like?
It was awesome. It really was. I mean, just to give you just a bit of a backstory on that. So we actually went twice. We won it 2 years in a row, and so we went down there. So, and I don't know if I'll ever go back to Colorado Springs, and this is why I tend to rack up the doctor's bills there. So the year before, the first year we went, played the first night, and I had played ball at the Axiom here in town, and I actually got scratched. And then it turned out that activated underneath someone's fingernail or something. I had this staph infection in my arm, and my arm blew up, and I couldn't move it. I couldn't play, and ultimately I almost lost my arm because I was in the ER there. until Thursday the following week. And so that was the first year. So I was like, okay, the second year, couldn't wait to get back. I was living in Colorado, working for Muscle Farm at the time. My boys come up, they came up, they stayed with me. It was just really good. We were working out at Muscle Farm, ready to go. I was like, okay, this didn't happen last year. It's going down this year. We got this. First game, we got the dub. We're battling, competing. I think that the second game, I think I had like 17 or so, 15, 17 going to 20, something like that. Just going to the lane and then boom, snap my Achilles. And so it was been a really rough go at those tournaments. But the experience, I mean, all that aside, the Olympic Training Center where all the athletes stay there was absolutely unbelievable. We stayed in the dorms, a little cottage there. The cafeteria was probably my favorite part since I couldn't really play, but they had these chefs making all these, these meals, very nutritious, focused for the Olympic athletes, right? And I mean, some of the other stuff around there was just an amazing facility. You got the weight room. There's wrestlers there. I mean, just a cool experience. Colorado Springs is absolutely beautiful. But, yeah, I'm never going back there, man.
I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But in terms of the rules, like that speed, it was fun because it was a different level. Something we didn't know when we got there is they do play with the women's ball, which was a bit interesting to adjust to. But our guys, I mean, we competed. They have a shot clock, right? And so it's a 12-second. You have 12 seconds to score. So the game you go to 20, it's the whole game lasts about 10 minutes. And then after, if the offense scores, you can press right away. And so there's no go, take it out, check the ball, and go. So it's a very fast-paced game. But I don't know, with the women's ball and stuff like that, I don't know. If you're trying to get in shape and things of that nature, quickly and do some cardio, that'd be it. But I prefer Bam Jam's kind of level of playing and the rules they follow.
Yeah, the traditional 3-on-3 stuff, not the. Yeah, it's crazy. I tried to figure it out myself when I was watching the FIBA rules. I'm like, what in the? I mean, it was just a faster paced game. I don't know. I like the traditional style of basketball though, especially for 3-on-3. Now, you obviously had your injuries. You mentioned you had injuries prior to that with your knees. The staph infection in the arm, which I did not know, which is insane. Then the Achilles. The mental toughness to get back, especially now. I mean, it's not like I don't want to say that. I want to word this the right way. Like, I'm not saying you don't have anything to play for. It's just that you're not at a professional level. You're not at the collegiate level. So what did it take? Like how did you get through that injury so that you could continue to play and do what you enjoy doing, which is even playing in the rec leagues and stuff like that at a competitive level?
You know what, Shane, that's a great question. It's just part of who I am. I mean, when it happened with my Achilles, I was like, okay, I was 33 at the time, playing for the love of the game, it was a very expensive recovery. It took about 15 months, and I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? But it comes down to just the love, man. I think, you think about there's people that are in wheelchairs or that can't see or that, only have one arm or whatever the case is, and they literally cannot play. Although there is some wheelchair, leagues like that, but you feel blessed, right? So if you can play, then why not? And it was a challenge. I've overcome tremendous adversity in my life, especially losing my brother, who was like my hero, to cancer when I was 18. And so in this life, man, there's not much that I don't think I can handle and overcome and get through. And it was a tough one, man. I was like, man, I'm just going to hang him up. But I just love the game too much. And then so the physical therapy it was a challenge. It was like, okay, you got to do this because you got to be able to walk. And then I just kept with my physical therapy, kept with my PT, and there's a huge mental aspect to even after you get cleared to play. In your head, it's like you're hesitant. Do I go? Is my other one going to snap? But I don't live my life in fear, and I've been able to get back to being able to play at a decent level, and it is just for the love of the game. I do, coach quite a few young men, and it's what I do for a living now. And I like to be able to go out there and not just tell them what to do, but to show them. And sometimes, have to put it on them. Today I was at the gym with a couple of my 8th grade boys, and we're battling and playing, and I think they respect that a lot more if, their coach, we can vibe and they can relate to them and I can show them. And so it just goes a long ways, man. But, I have a daughter that's hooping right now. Hopefully my little guy had a son back in September. Hopefully will be a hooper, but whatever he does, support him. But if he is, I want to be able to be healthy and be able to get out there. And I just love the game, man. That's what it comes down to.
Man, I commend you for it.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I don't think people realize the injuries. Like you explaining it, it kind of brings back memories for me. I mean, when I tore my shoulder about 2.5 years ago, well, now it's 2 years ago in November, I had surgery for it. And then even when I was cleared, it took about 7 months total after physical therapy and everything. I was still terrified to even play hoops because I'm always nervous about it happening. And then I just retore it 2 months ago playing basketball. And so you just have that. It's cool to hear it from you though. It's cool to hear it from you because if you love the game, you battle back because you kind of want to do that. I have the same, situation here. I have my son who's 2.5, and while I might not be at the same level as you guys, but I still want him to hoop, and I still want to be able to hoop with him. So I'm going to continue to try to fight back. I don't think people realize how injuries can truly derail you, not only physically but mentally. But it's cool to hear how you got back from it. So you mentioned. Now, Book, you talked about coaching these young men and you're coaching the youth. That's how you're giving back. I think it's awesome. I think it's amazing that the guys from like yourself, you're the legend here from the Valley. People know you in the basketball world, and now you're making your mark by helping the young individuals. I want you to talk about that, though. This is an opportunity for you to shed some light. You mentioned Coach Cada. I kind of want you to bring this full circle and let us know what you're up to and where we can find you and what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, I touched on bodybuilding.com a little bit after I was college, and, you go into the real world and get your degree, but the following fall, you're not going to practice. So I'm sitting there like, oh, my God, who am I? What do I do? What do I do these days? So luckily I got a job at bodybuilding.com where we're still, fitness-oriented, active, cool people, cool industry, things like that. I was there for about 5 years. Then from there I went on to Muscle Farm for another 5, and then some other, corporate jobs and things like that. When I just realized, man, that sitting at a desk, I'm too kind of ADD. I'm too scattered for that. And so I always had trained and hooped and played and stuff. And a couple summers ago, I was like, you know what? Let me just see if I can just go. If anyone wants some training, one-on-one stuff, I love it. I want to help the kids, whatever. So it started, next level basketball training really started with no name, anything like that. I was just going around to parks in the summertime where, I didn't have a gym space or anything like that. Or some people had a court in their house or in the front yard or whatever the case was. So it started training. And then word of mouth started getting around and started kind of taking on a life of its own. And then this last January, 2018, I was like, let me just go ahead and do this full time. So kind of decided to trade in the 9 to 5 and, just started training on an individual basis, which really has a niche here in the Valley. I like to think I specialize. I enjoy coaching the finer points of the game, but, have something for everyone. I've coached as young as 4 or 5 year olds all the way up to, collegiate and guys that are going to play overseas and stuff, and everything in between, boys, girls, everything. And so I started next level basketball training, and with there's a lot of great camps in the Valley and team camps and things like that, but there's a real niche. A lot of times at those camps, you can't get that individual focus and that individual work that you want. And so I think parents really appreciate and players really like what we have going, and it's just grown and grown and grown, and that's what we're doing from the training standpoint. And now from the club standpoint, I was approached by a group of parents that their kids have been playing AAU together since about 5th grade, and they kind of want to go a different route in terms of taking a more competitive approach to their kids' games, and their kids are really ready to go there. And so I had a tryout this last summer to start a club team as well. So we're actually called the Next Level Basketball Academy. So there's the training side, which is the my LLC and everything like that, and then we have our club, and it's a group of 8th grade boys. Most of them are over from kind of the East End downtown area, but we're kind of spread out all over. And so we've played in 6 tournaments so far. Just got back from Seattle last weekend where we had a really good showing. Planning on expanding to 4 teams next year. I'm not sure the age groups, and got to find some awesome coaches to help coach these kids up. But yeah, man, that's really what we have going right now. Coach Cada jumped in help me kick this thing off the ground. He has such great insight, and I mentioned the lunch earlier. That's really what it is. Any situation that I go through, I can go sit down with coach. Hey, coach, dealing with this situation or this kid, or how could I handle that situation better? And he's right there. And after that, we went and got the Borah game. So it's a really great. I would like to think that I'm a player's coach. I've coached for or played for some coaches that I didn't really respond well to in terms of their approach to their kids, and they're really, or us as players, as young men. And I just kind of do the opposite of that. And I think players respond well to that, and they see what's going on over here, and we're just getting started with next level. So I'd really like to mimic and kind of follow on the heels of some other great clubs in town, which there's a bunch. The Slam and Hoop Dreams, who my daughter plays for. I trust and really like what they have going on over there. So, but I think the more exposure, the more quality teams with quality coaches, supportive parents that are willing to invest and support and feed their kids hunger for the game. And if we can get it out there, we need to put Idaho on the map from that standpoint. So that's really where my heart's at with this in the game, and it's like soul food for me that I can still be in the gym, still teaching these kids. And my ultimate goal is to have them, succeed and reach their ultimate next level goals, whatever that means for them. It could be, if you're a practice player, getting on to the second team, or second team getting on to the black team, which is our top team. And if you're, not on the rotation, you want to be a star, whatever the case is for them, or it could be school, which is the most important. You're getting a bunch of B's. Let's bump those up. Whatever the case is, where it's bigger than ball, and that's what Coach Cada taught me, and that's what I'm trying to teach these young guys. So, yeah, man, in a nutshell, that's basically what we got going on.
That's so awesome. I think it's so cool what you have going. I've had a couple of interviews in the past. One I had with Berto. A long time ago, I had one with a guy named Adam Rankin, and he's in charge of Team Approach, I believe is their name, that club. And we talked about club sports, like club basketball compared to AAU and such, and how it's growing in Idaho and why it's needed. And I think it's awesome that you're jumping in on it too, because unfortunately, Idaho desperately needs that for the development of their players if they want to, truly get looks and stuff from bigger schools, and just a different approach, I guess, than the old school way of doing it. And I think it's great that you're in there, because the people respect the players that know what they're doing, and the fact that you're in there grinding with your players and you have the reputation, I think it's going to continue to grow, and it's exactly what we need. So I'm glad to see that you're jumping in on it, man. It's super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And Book, where do we find out more about Next Level, like the training and the club team? Like where can we find information on it?
Absolutely, man. So we actually got it up and going within like a couple weeks, right, this last summer. So our phase 2 for this year is to get a website going. But for now, it's all on my Instagram page. It's at Booker T Nabors. And then on Facebook, you can find our homepage is Next Level Basketball Academy. And so, and everything you want, all my training stuff is on there on my homepage on Facebook. Anybody wants to see what the training looks like, I have a full album of that. Like I said, we got something for all ages, boys, girls, every level. And so, yeah, the more people that are interested, the better. And we're just trying to blow this thing up for Idaho, for sure.
Heck yeah, man. And I'll leave a link here for the Instagram and the Facebook threads that you just mentioned. And for everybody out there, once again, this is Booker Nabors. Book, I appreciate you joining the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
No doubt. And for everybody out there, you know the drill. Make sure to subscribe to the show, and we'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.